Hello, welcome. I'm so excited to be here with my colleague, Dr. Alissa Wolfe, today. And just a reminder, my name is Erin Harner. I'm a gut health and IBS dietitian, and I just want to introduce Alissa because she is amazing. So Dr. Alissa Wolfe is a chronic pain specialist and board-certified orthopedic doctor of physical therapy, renowned for developing several pain programs across the U.S. Alissa's unique approach goes beyond traditional symptom management and conventional approaches to uncover and target the hidden factor that perpetuates pain. By using evidence-based methods that directly assess or address the missing link, she's helped hundreds of women radically reduce stubborn pain and years of feeling stuck. Welcome, Dr. Wolfe. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited because hopefully this is going to really enlighten some of your people and get them to understand what's really going on with pain.
Yes, and pain is one of those tricky topics. So can you explain what you mean by the hidden cause of stubborn pain? Like, how does it differ from when most people think of what causes pain?
Yeah, so first of all, like most of the time we think of pain, we immediately think of, and this applies to not just gut pain, but really any kind of pain in the body. So whether you're dealing with back pain, neck pain, migraines, pelvic pain, abdominal pain, you name it, neuropathy, any kind of pain. But traditionally, we immediately go to, well, it's something physical. We think of, if my knee hurts, we zoom in on the knee. We think it's joint, it's muscle, it's something structural, it's something mechanical. And oftentimes, when pain becomes chronic or when pain persists for longer than we say it should, than the normal healing time, something changes. And it's not just a physical, structural, mechanical problem anymore. It starts to become a more systemic problem involving what I'm calling overactive pain pathways. So the pathways themselves become overly sensitive. The system shifts. And there's actually really, if it's okay to share with your audience, there's actually really three main shifts that happen. And so the first one is that the nerves in the body actually become overly sensitive. So think about it like most people have heard of like the sciatic nerve, for example. So the sciatic nerve, the actual nerves in your body can change and become more sensitive. And it's kind of like, you can think of it like, we have like smoke detectors and it's basically a sensor that detects smoke. But imagine as if that smoke detector became overly sensitive and now it starts going off, starts detecting and firing when you blow out a birthday candle or when there's a hot steamy shower. It's not supposed to be going off for those things, but it's just kind of firing all the time. And so the same thing kind of happens with those nerves. They can become really, really sensitive. So they're picking up on information that isn't necessarily dangerous.
Okay.
Some of it is, some of it isn't. So that's the first thing. The second thing that can happen is that, so if you can imagine that nerve or those nerves are now firing like crazy. And the second thing that happens is the brain can't keep up. It's getting bombarded with all of these messages. The body is like screaming up at the brain. And it's almost as if there's a language barrier between that body and the brain. You can almost think of it as if, your spouse all of a sudden just started speaking gibberish or yelling gibberish at you. And you're like, what the heck? I don't know what you're saying. This is really concerning. And so you, as a concerned spouse, you just start dialing 911 just in case, because you're like, this sounds bad. It could be bad. So the same thing kind of happens. The brain can't keep up. Goes, I don't know what you're trying to tell me. It sounds concerning, so I'm going to activate my protective responses, which pain and typically the fight or flight response. So, tensing up muscles, adding inflammation, you can't sleep, all those things. Okay. And then really the third thing, if I'm not going too far into this, but the third thing is that this whole pathway, this whole connection, these synapses, the whole thing becomes more automatic. The longer that those pain pathways fire, the stronger they get, the more automatic it becomes. So we like to say nerves that fire together, wire together.
Yes.
And so if you think of it this way, if every time you do the dishes for the past 7 years, you feel back pain, the body just become automatic thing, right? Your brain goes, oh, we're doing the dishes. I'm just going to jump to that next step and create the pain because that's what we've always done. Same thing. If every time you eat garlic, you have abdominal pain, it might just be creating that same loop, that same pattern. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so powerful. It's like a lot of people in my community, I mean, the number one symptom that people experience is abdominal pain. Yeah. And what you're saying makes so much sense, right? This is why IBS or irritable bowel syndrome is really classified as a gut-brain disorder. The challenge isn't all in the gut. It's actually the connection between the gut and the brain.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I think too, what's important to know, like we were talking about, like, it's not just physical, it's not purely physical. And so like with gut symptoms, oftentimes there's bloating, there's constipation, there's, you know, all of these other symptoms that I would say are physical things that are contributing, like motility, gut motility, like all of those things are contributing. And so it's not going to say that that's not valid and that's not actually happening. So we do need to address those pieces simultaneously. And if you know, your pathways are overactive, then we also need to do that too.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. That's something that we don't talk a lot about in the gut health world, this idea of the pain pathways. So thanks. So what's the biggest misconception you hear about chronic pain? Like, how would you clarify it for someone struggling with both pain and gut issues? I know I have some clients right now with fibromyalgia, a lot of people with chronic pain, whether that's musculoskeletal or right elsewhere in their body. Can you speak into that for us?
Yeah. Probably the biggest misconception is that chronic pain, well, there's probably two. There's two, and well, I'll kind of address both if that's okay. Basically, number one, it's not all in your head. Like probably the biggest misconception is that it is all in your head. Like we can't seem to really find anything wrong with you, or if it's this just been around this long, you know, we don't really know. So it must be all in your head. You're crazy because obviously you have anxiety. Like that's normal. When you have pain for this long, or when you have gut symptoms for this long, you're going to have anxiety. You're going to probably be depressed, or, you know, like these are normal symptoms of the problem, but doctors flip it and say, oh, you're anxious or you're depressed, so that's why you're in pain. And so I'd say that's one of the biggest things that's a misconception. The other thing would be definitely that chronic pain is forever. There's nothing we can do about it, that, you know, it is what it is. Just suck it up and deal with it and learn to live with it. Like these are things that we hear all the time, and it's not true necessarily. Like there may not be a cure, but it doesn't mean that it's just going to be forever and then you're just doomed to take medications for the rest of your life. But on the note of it not being all in your head, there's a very bit, like the pendulum has completely swung from like doctors going and saying like pain is purely physical and we're so focused on the physical aspects, to now you have folks who are out there saying pain is purely a mind-body syndrome and that the only way to treat it is to dig up trauma and process these repressed emotions and just meditate and journal. And then, you know, what I see is that people get so frustrated because they're trying so hard to do that piece, and they're like, why am I still in pain? I should be out of this by now. If I've dug up all my trauma, I don't know what else I can do. And so that's the other, I think, side of that is those things are important. They can be valuable. They can help for some people, but it's not the only thing that needs to happen, right? There's so much more that other things that you can do to address these shifts, your pain pathways and nervous system sensitivity overall.
Okay, amazing. Just like this is inspiring so much hope, right? Yes. Like it's not, doesn't have to be forever. It's not all in your head. Like these are messages that we don't hear enough of. So thank you for bringing that to our community.
Yeah. And I'm sure folks with gut pain, I mean, if you have folks with fibromyalgia, for sure, they have heard that message before and likely have been trying some of that. Like, well, if I meditate, it's just going to make all my problems go away. And you get really defeated when it's not. So yes, there is more you can do with the right strategies to address these pathways specifically. So
amazing. Thank you. So last question. So for women dealing with both stubborn pain and gut symptoms, what's one thing they could start with today that might address some of these hidden causes of pain?
Yeah. Okay. So I want to show a strategy. So there's obviously lots of strategies, things that you can do. I mentioned those 3 shifts that happen. The first one being that nerves become overly sensitive. So the nerves in the body, the nerves in the gut, the sciatic nerve become overly sensitive, and we can actually turn down their sensitivity. And so I want to show a movement that you can do. And this is a movement that, quite frankly, can address pain in really any area of the body. So if you have head pain, migraines, if you have pain in your foot, if you have back pain, if you have abdominal pain, wherever you have pain, you can use this strategy. But I'll give my caveat, of course, my disclaimer, like this is not a replacement for physical therapy or medical advice, of course. And the big thing I want to mention is that if you're going to do this, we don't want to stay in that same mindset that we're always in when we do exercise and we do movements, which is no pain, no gain, which is it has to hurt before it gets better. This is something you have to, my catchphrase is push to it and not through it. So if you feel numbness, if you feel pulling, if you feel burning or tingling or anything that feels uncomfortable, you want to push to that boundary and not through it. And so like I look at it like pain, think of pain or any of those symptoms that I just mentioned as kind of the cliff. I want you to walk up to the edge of the cliff, look over the cliff, but don't jump off of it. Just get right up to the edge of it and then stay there in that sort of boundary. So I'm going to show this movement and hopefully it's helpful. I'm going to get on my floor here, move my chair here. Okay. And I don't have my yoga mat, so we're just going to get on the floor today, so no big deal. So this is called a nerve mobility exercise. So you're going to lay on your side. I would suggest doing this on something more padded, whether that's your couch, your carpet. You can do it in bed. And always use a pillow because we don't want to strain the neck. You can bring your arms out straight here. And notice my knees are bent, my hips are bent. This is just where I sit comfortably. So, you know, if you're in a slightly different position, it doesn't matter. So get comfortable here. And then basically you're going to open the book, right? So you're going to open, the top arm is going to rotate, your head is going to turn with the hand, and then you're going to bring that top leg straight out forward as you rotate. So here, and then bring it back. So it's a repetitive motion here and back. And so what we are doing is we're actually taking the entire nervous system and we're from head to toe. If you can imagine, like my nervous system is connected, all those nerves are connected from my fingertips down to my toes, right? I'm taking that nervous system and I'm kind of gliding it as I pull into that. It's taking it and like kind of twisting it up. But think of like taking a wash rag and twisting it like that. So I'm taking that nervous system and lengthening it out. So you're mobilizing those nerves. And what's happening is over time as you do this safely, again, without those symptoms, it's going to lower the sensitivity to movement, pressure, stretch, vibration, touch. Okay. The nerves also react to temperature and blood supply and stress levels and inflammation. We can't do a whole lot to directly impact those things. There's things that we can do, but you know, it's harder to address that. So we're going to go after the mobility, the physical piece, lower the sensitivity to that, and thus the nervous system sensitivity comes down. So do you want me to show that one more time, or does that make sense?
Sure. Would you speak into a little bit like how often you would do this or how many times?
Yeah. So that is a perfect question. I usually don't like to answer that question. And the reason is because I want you to push to it and not through it.
Okay.
So typical like cookie cutter, our formulas, like my brain automatically goes to, I want you to shoot for about 3 sets of 10. If you need a number, I would go with that. But I don't want you to just say, okay, she said 3 sets of 10, so I'm just going to push through it and do those 3 sets of 10. I want you to modify to shoot for about that number. And so if you have to modify, let me show some modifications. So the thing that I would modify first would be the amplitude of the motion. And so
Okay.
as you can see here, there's a lot of different moving components here. Let's say you have a lot of sciatica or back pain, and doing this piece is really painful, and you notice like, oh my gosh, it's pulling all through here. So then maybe you modify the amplitude by not bringing that leg all the way straight, or it's just halfway through. So that's a good modification. So you could now you can do 3 sets of 10 with that slight modification. Same thing at the upper body. If you have more neck pain, headaches, arm pain, upper back pain, whatever it is, chest pain, maybe this movement is too much. Maybe you don't turn your head nearly as much and it's less of a head movement. Maybe that arm only goes halfway. Sorry, I lost the leg because you can't walk and chew gum at the same time. So you could do halfway with this arm. Now you could bend the arm and just leave it here on your chest and do kind of a rotation this way, right? You could do just the arm, as you see me doing, or you could do just the leg. So there's lots of ways to modify this. But specifically for gut, I really, like if you don't have the pain in other areas, if it's mostly primarily gut pain, then I would try to bring that whole rotation in, because you're going to get that sort of movement in here, right? So that. So again, and then the other thing that I would also quickly mention too is why I'm so careful to say, like, push to it and not through it with this. If you feel that tension or you feel that pulling and you're like, oh, it's fine, it doesn't really bother me right now. Warning, because nerves have a latency period. So sometimes you won't feel so bad during, but a couple hours later you'll be like, whoa, that's uncomfortable. I don't enjoy that. So keep that in mind. So always do a little bit less than you think you're capable of, just to modify things. And then if it does increase symptoms after, give it some time to kind of come back down to baseline, but then do it again, just modify it again and do, right? So that's a good indication. Like if pain increases, then go, okay, so I know what I just did was a little bit too much. I'm going to modify it and do less slightly. So we want to find that sweet spot of where it doesn't flare things up.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I know one expression that I use a lot, and it's used a lot in functional medicine, is just start low and go slow.
I love that.
Start low and go slow. It is something that permeates everything I do in gut health, whether it's supplements or food or elimination diets or you name it.
Yeah.
One other question about your movement, Alissa. Do you ever do it on the other side, or would you alternate sides?
Always do both sides. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So both sides evenly. Up to push to the pain and then back off.
So yes, both sides, but like if you're, again, you want to get to the edge of the cliff. So if one side, you might be able to go way further, and on the other side, it might be like, that was a smaller movement. And so that's fine too. However far away your cliff is on the right versus the left, modify that and stick with what your tolerance zone is.
Okay, amazing. Yeah. So last question for you. If there was a takeaway from what you shared today, what would you leave with our group of people who are struggling with gut health issues, whether that's gas and bloating or diarrhea or constipation or abdominal pain? What's a takeaway that you could leave them with?
Well, probably 2 things if I can. It doesn't have to be forever. There is practical strategies that will help either with your pain or your gut symptoms, that you doesn't have to just be the way that it is. This is not normal. You not just have to deal with this and suck it up and, go on living like this. I know a lot of times as women, that's what we're told. Like, oh, you're a woman. You have hormones. Like, not normal. And so that's one thing. And then I think probably the other big thing that you can, like I've been saying, push to it, not through it, over and over. Like, you can use that in a lot of different aspects, not just with this movement you saw me here. You can do that with other things that tend to flare you up. So if you have, if you struggle with sitting for too long, if you struggle with squatting, if you, climbing up and down stairs, it's, you can apply that same principle to any of the movements or activities that you're doing. And I don't know how well you can apply it directly to gut stuff, because I think I'll leave this to Erin, because you're the expert in, like, I wouldn't say like push to it, not through it with what you eat, because I think that's I don't think that's what I'm trying to say.
It depends. Yeah, maybe we can do another talk on that because there are some places where that would be relevant.
Yeah.
Right. So many people in my community avoid so many foods that flare them up because it contributes to pain or being uncomfortable or bloating or distension or any of the other symptoms.
Yeah.
But we do need variety in our diet to be healthy. So it does apply.
Yeah. Okay, good. Not totally off the mark with that.
Nope,
but
not
yeah.
at all.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. You have to, it's the complete avoidance doesn't help, because actually completely avoiding the things that aggravate your symptoms contributes to those 3 shifts that I shared. And same thing with pushing through, it continues to reinforce those pathways. So pushing to it, not through it, is kind of that happy medium. So yeah, very
Love
good.
that. Thank you.